Hi, I'm Tom Evans, and I'm thrilled today to be speaking with Nikki Wood, the CEO of Endgame. How are you, Nikki?
I'm very well, thank you, Tom. Thank you
Listen,
for
I've got,
inviting me to this.
oh, it's great. I'm trying to get a bit more understanding today, for and overstanding indeed for where we are as human beings on this planet at this time, because there's so much stuff out there in the press. You've obviously got people that are climate change deniers. You've got people like Greta Thunberg who and the Insulate Britain crowd and what have you. Then you've got lots of people doing some clever stuff.
Yeah.
But you kind of sit above all of these people and you're looking down on them. Where are we right now as human beings on this very special planet, as far as we know, the only planet that can harbour life of any form?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a miracle in itself, isn't it? If you really think about it. But without getting too deep on that one, the Earth is an evolving entity, if that's an easy way to put it, and we're part of that evolution. We are part of the ecology, the conscious ecology as well of the evolution of the planet, and so we're very absorbed and affected by that change, by changes, planetary changes, ecological changes, or biome changes. There's many different ways of expressing this. And we are also affecting change as well. So at the moment, we're kind of in a flux. That's how I see it. So that, the planet and the natural ecology, we're a part of it, is also changing and affecting each other, but we're conscious of that change. And I think partially because we can see what's going on around us, we emotionally react. There's two different sides to human beings, I suppose. There's the emotional reaction, which can either be very happy thoughts or an ecstasy, or it can be fear and and that sort of and fear and anger, I suppose, or defensiveness. So, and the other part of us is a very considered, maybe almost scientific in some ways view, and another view of it, another part of us is a very spiritual development. So there's quite a few different parts to a human being in our connection with our habitat.
So is it right to say that is it right to say that the Earth has heated up because of human activities? Is that a fact? Is that
I think it is. Right. So facts are, I don't think we can talk really in terms of actual definite facts, but we can certainly, we explore our world and our environment and try to understand it. We can certainly look in the past, but it's a very recent past that we can look into, and we try to understand a much longer past, millions of years, and then project forwards. And then we get caught up in reacting to something that's coming in the next couple of years or 10 minutes down the road. So it's quite a difficult paradigm for us to get a footing on. We currently live as in the present moment, but we're also thinking in the past and reacting to something that might happen in the future. I don't know whether there's that many other species on the planet that actually behave in that unusual, almost I suppose that's like time travel, isn't it? We're not used. I think we're finding it difficult to understand ourselves as an entity, as a being, as a spiritual, emotional, physical being, and then to try to understand and grow into our habitat and grow that conscious awareness. There's a lot about awareness now through various different means. There's some wonderful people out there, and connecting the very reductionist scientific way of looking at things, which is recent, really. I mean, we weren't looking at life like that 1,000 years ago. Very different. We would have been actually felt we were much more part of our environment, and we were in the environment, and we were the environment. Whereas, over the last few hundred years, we've looked at the environment and we make pictures of the environment as though we're something separate from it. So it's quite an interesting perspective that human beings, the general consciousness is about traveling around the world, having experiences, looking and taking pictures of the environment we're in, and then freaking out about global climate change, which is huge for an individual to consider this, oh, the whole thing's changing and I've got to change somehow with that on an individual basis, is overwhelming, I think.
And is it then simply that I was born in the late 50s, and I think the population of the planet was 2 or 3 billion at the time, and now we're 7 billion, nearly 8 billion.
Yeah.
Is it just that there's more of us and that needs more resources? Is that a factor, or is that the main factor?
I might be a little bit controversial here. So
please.
There's plenty of resources right around the world. I think what's happened probably over the last few hundred years is that humans have become quite controlling of each other. And with that, we've become controlling of our resources, and we've prohibited resources, and we built an economy based on that to some degree. Shortage leads to some parts of industry making a lot of profit.
Mm-hmm.
We have an awful lot of marketing, don't we? I mean, really, news, is it really news? Or is it something else? And I leave that to anybody else's imagination. So I don't think it's so much about we've got a lack of resource. I think it's more about how we share and understand how we interact with the abundance on the planet, and how we share that knowledge and experience together to grow together. We're fighting with each other, literally, obviously, at the moment, and in lots of places in the world, and even locally, not just around the world, we're fighting with each other. We're even in this country, even in a small region, to affect positive change physically, we have to fight with each other about whether it's acceptable to put a wind farm up on a hillside or not. Is that the most intelligent thing to do? So there's quite a lot of attitudinal change, and I feel like we're in a real shift, and we're fortunately we are living through a massive shift. Maybe people in the turn of the 1900s felt they were going through a huge shift too, because there's massive communications that suddenly sprung up everywhere, which made a huge change. And probably my grandmother was born before jet airplanes were in the air, but then during her life she would have seen those sort of things, mechanization turning to digitization. Now what we're getting is another rapid change. So will we evolve with it? I don't think we've got a choice. I think that's what we've all signed up for, but maybe we're not consciously aware and talking about that.
So what can an individual do to help make a micro change that will scale up into the macrocosm?
Okay, I actually feel, Tom, certainly in our local community and in this country, if that's representative of anywhere else, but also worldwide. I work internationally as well. Mm-hmm. And there's a real wanting to understand, to work with nature rather than control it and change it, to mold it to how we would like it in a perfect, idealistic world. And that's a step change over the last, certainly in my career, over the last 30 years. I would say probably in the last, and it's rapidly accelerating. So, and some things kind of, there are ideas out there to help individuals make those changes. So, very basic things is we're all much more aware of recycling waste, and why waste is, we're beginning to see waste not as waste and throw it away and it's rubbish. I mean, when I was younger, I seem to remember people could actually open the car window and chuck something out, and it wasn't as thought of as so horrendous. If anybody did that now, it would just be, you're ruining it for everybody else. So,
and we do see that still. We see it still, that behaviour.
Yes, we see that behaviour, and we're actually disgusted by it. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think some time ago, it was kind of like chuck it out the window and it's okay. So we've gone through a bit of a plastic ecstasy. Can I say that? We've moved from the whatever we used before, glass and paper and things, into a very plastic and a wasteful, if you like, a kind of use it and abuse it and chuck it out the window and don't think about it ever again. To now we're coming around to, oh, how do we recycle that? That is actually not what we want to be doing for a range of reasons. And there are many people in most societies who look at that. We've got laws and policies worldwide and locally that reinforce that. You've got things like, how do we harness energy? We've also got the push and pull of that in we've had Storm Arwen recently in this country anyway, where a lot of people's power supplies were knocked out. I mean, we're a Western developed country. What's going on? So it's making people think more, how do I get off grid? I mean, that's a good thing. And also, is there technology? The technology is amazing with like photovoltaics, the size of them. I mean, you can pretty much print them off a special printer. So the technology, and then storage of electricity, this mysterious quantum stuff that runs through cables that we don't really understand, and we don't want to stick our finger in the plug hole to find out. However, there's this amazing energy that we can start to harness. So there's some incredible, and through fear and anxiety, I suppose, and a need to react, there's some incredible people across the world who are really pulling together through universities, scientists, and not just scientists. There are people who are working on behavioral issues to help people, communities and stakeholders, as we call them in the trade, to come together to help them to make joined up decisions about how to live more holistically or sustainably. So there's a lot of things about how we calm ourselves down so we can make better informed judgments. Very, very simply, meditation, yoga, physical exercise, better nutrition, all these things, we're becoming much more aware of what we are, as well as at the same time, much more aware of how we connect and interrelate with this wonderful, dare I say, spaceship that's hurtling through space at, 1,000 miles an hour? I mean, that's amazing in itself.
Actually, no, it's 67,000 miles an hour.
Is it 67,000 miles an hour? Sorry, I misjudged
the ground under your feet is moving about 1,000.
Yeah, and that's why I'm pedaling so fast.
Exactly. Also, I always think that some people sort of stand still, some people go backwards.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to share some good news with you as well. I was up.
Yes, please.
We put planning application in recently for our house, and I've come across the very traditional local parish council. Went to the meeting last week, and I stood my ground because we're doing an eco house. And at the end, the person that was most against our application came up to me and this other lady and said, "Will you form a working party with us so we can spread best practice around the village and little things that everyone can do?"
Yeah, fantastic.
And right up to the whole thing as well. And of course we said, yeah. So I thought, well, and that can grow. So if one village in the South Wiltshire does that, then other villages can follow suit.
Precisely.
Yeah,
and there's
something we can all do.
Sorry, go on, Tom.
There's loads we can all do, from not littering through to just changing your light bulbs to LED and all that kind of stuff.
That's exactly it. I mean, it's similar for me. I'm moving into it. Well, I'm taking on a building that's going to be converted into a dwelling. It's an agricultural building, and there's all sorts of areas of policy and planning that I really need to work out, from biodiversity to enhancing biodiversity on my site, to making sure that I don't have nutrients soaking away from my wastewater into very important wildlife areas, riverine and lakes and things like that, contributing or making sure that I have at least 30% of renewables produced on site. So there's quite a few, and I'm very fortunate, I feel, or that it's probable that I'll be able to lead the way in that. And obviously, given my job, what I do for a living, I'm really keen on developing almost like a demonstration project. But it's not just, like you've just pointed out, it's not just about the tech or even the old ways. I'm going to be using lime mine's not going to be a passive house. Mine's going to need, because it's an old building, it's 1700s, it needs to breathe. It's like a living entity that I'm going to it needs that lime to make sure that the water, the moisture level doesn't come too far in, but at the same time it can breathe outwards, which is lovely, isn't it? To think of a building breathing in and out like But it's about also connecting with the community and sharing the information like you've said. I think that's fantastic. It's not now, this is a really salient point, actually. It's not just about top-down policies and legislation anymore. It's about grassroots. And we're all the grassroots. Every one of us matters now. So if we learn something and share it through wonderful technology, the internet, YouTube, whatever it is, it's brilliant. Brilliant. So, and we're learning quicker because the planet's actually changing more quickly. And there's reasons for that, which we could discuss.
Well, let's discuss those reasons. Why is the planet changing?
Well, we're not just on a planet, that's rolling around in the middle of space, probably doing nothing. We're actually part of a galaxy that's actually rotating. So we've got our own solar system. So we're moving around the sun, and that whole solar system is moving around in a galaxy around a bigger, either big black hole in the middle or what was a star. Mm-hmm. And we don't move around in a nice even sort of curve around. We actually go around in an elliptical pattern. So we know that we have seasons because we get closer and further away from the sun. But similarly with the whole galaxy moving around this central area, which is a big ball of energy, we're actually moving in terms of thousands of light years, we're getting a bit closer. So we're actually receiving more light or energy, which means that things are speeding up. That's how things speed up. More energy, more light equals more energy. That's basically what it is. The more of that, things can speed up more. So hence our evolution, we're going through probably what we would call a creative evolutionary step change, because things are speeded up. It's like having a DNA upgrade.
So what if someone wants to get off the world and just stop? Is that an option?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Of course it is. But I suppose you'd be doing that. You'd be incarnating into the next step, I guess, is to step off. You could do it metaphysically. You could do it through various different means. Yeah, of course you can. We have choice. I actually feel that most people wouldn't take that choice. They'll probably want to see what's going to come next. Yeah. There's some very challenged people at the moment across the planet. I mean, there have been for a long time, but I suppose the whole psychological and emotional and spiritual change, if you like, through what coronavirus, that amazing virus, it has taught us, whether it did it on purpose or not, I don't know. But, that I think we're discovering that maybe that we're coming out of the bubble of realizing that there is birth and there is death and life is a continuum. I don't know whether we're coming out of that, the bubble of there's life and death. You're alive and then you're dead. That's not really reality, is it? It's you're born and you die, but there's a continuum, and life is there is a continuum. So I don't know. I haven't got enough awareness.
I want to go backwards and forwards in time just now.
Yeah.
I want to go backwards. When did you, in this current incarnation, did you realize that this is your passion and your mission? What got you into all of this stuff?
Oh gosh, I was very, very teeny weeny. I was about 6 years old. My brother had tied me to it would have been a lime tree, actually, with the ones that have all the suckers that come from the bottom. Mm-hmm. And we were playing cowboys and Indians, and I was dressed in a little Indian suit with a little feather sticking out. And he's a few years older than me, and I think he probably got a bit tired of me. I thought it was good fun, and he tied me to a tree. And this tree had all these lovely suckers with it, and it was probably midsummer, so it's lovely and warm, and I was really happy. And there was these wonderful caterpillars all over the tree. And I was just I was probably there for about 5 minutes. It felt like probably aeons. Mm-hmm. I told my mother it's aeons. And from that, I wanted to be an entomologist. I was just so taken away with these things that looked like otherworldly, not from our planet. How could they be like that? What were they doing? Why was it all jelly inside? Why wasn't it like us? How didn't they disintegrate? And they've got all these wonderful hairs. And did they think? Do they know what they're doing or where they're coming from? Or did they know my presence? I really felt that kind of do you know I'm here? Because I know you're there. Are you aware of me? Am I aware of you? So I was about 6 years old, and that's
Wow.
the magic spell came then. And then I've had lots of other magic spells along the way. Followed my heart, followed that really. That was probably the first conscious, blissful, real blissful moment that I can remember. So that's how it started.
Wow, that's fascinating. So in 100 years, we've come a long way, haven't we? 100 years ago, we just finished World War
I
One.
haven't been here that long though.
No, I'm not saying you were, but, it was just we just had the first what we thought was World War One. We didn't know there was going to be World War Two. We might be on the brink of World War Three right now. Where do you think and hope we'll be in 100 years' time?
I would really hope that we're more forgiving and connected towards each other. That's where I'd really like it. I would love human beings to be more seeing the world as a round place rather than it's got bridges and barriers and walls, and we're in countries and we've got these identities, and more understanding and less fearful of this wonderful habitat that we're involved with. And I that's what I really hope. And I can see that. I think the quantum physics, the stuff that we don't really understand at the minute, that stuff that's all a bit magical and just kind of things that just happen, and that sort of consciousness funny stuff that goes on, whatever that is, with the kind of hard science that we think we know things, and our not just our collective consciousness starts to change. That's what I'm hoping, and that comes with individuals and self-development, I think. And what I mean by that is calming down and enjoying the moment and realizing that this is all magic. The whole thing is wonderful, and not being frightened of it. So I'm hoping we'll calm down certain parts of our brain, the amygdala, perhaps, that bit that triggers fight or flight, understanding how important fight and flight are, but when they're needed. So it's kind of understanding our programming, or our kit. We've got a kit, this wonderful kit, and it's understanding our kit so that we can actually walk around the face of this place and help it along to evolve, be part of that evolution in a really conscious and rewarding way, rather than battling with it and battling with ourselves. Microcosm, macrocosm, isn't it? What goes on inside seems to be, that's what, your path unfolds. If you've got it going on it's going to happen out, isn't it? And reflect back.
And are you optimistic for the future?
Yeah, I am. I think, well, how could you, sorry, I don't mean to be, how could you not be? I mean, what a planet, what an amazing thing we're experiencing. So even if you're only into, we live on a planet and it's got lovely creatures and all the rest of it, and you're not really connected in any way in terms of spirituality or development in that kind of way, it's still, if you just stand there for a second and you think your heart's beating, it's doing it whether you want it to or not. And you can regulate it to an extent, but one's heart beats and pumps all that blood and that juicy stuff around your body. Equally, the planet revolves. So how could you not be optimistic about the future when there's bigger forces, not really bigger, just that you don't take the time to calm ourselves down, to connect sometimes, to realize that it's all unfolding beautifully, and we're part of that beautiful unfolding. We're not here some people go, we're not here very long, and they worry, and they scurry. All you need to do is breathe. So that's it. That's as simple as it is. You breathe and absorb and involve and evolve.
Well, let me ask you one final question. How does Endgain help? How do you help your clients? Well,
at the moment, we are less in that metaphysical state. I bring that personally because, that's who I am. So, so I hope to bring, and I do bring, apparently I do bring, I get that repeated back to me, a very considered and calm approach to some really challenging questions, like how do we manage populations of people with all sorts of diseases and an increasing population, but older population, in islands in, say, the Caribbean, where climate impacts are affecting them because apparently other countries are spewing out all sorts of noxious gases that affect climate, and it affects that it affects their sea level rise, it affects whether they've got clean water, it affects their infrastructure, which is often all around the edges of these low-lying islands that then are affected by, you know, storms, sea surge, searing heat, heavier monsoons, shifting patterns that, you know, and they're quite constrained. And in terms of how they can react, they can't just sort of abandon ship and go and live somewhere else because other places won't have them. We're seeing these massive changes in demographics around the world. I think we could be seeing that a lot more as well. So my role in this is really to help with the science. So bring some, as we call them, facts about a particular situation as far as we can understand, and help to build and design new infrastructure, new technology, like we were talking about solar panels earlier, and really build from a biodiversity perspective, so an ecology perspective of how people can live together. So we're working with people on community energy projects. We're working on strategies for policies for governments in how they can adapt these cross-cutting issues. There's lots of cross-cutting issues on gender, health, climate change, resources. You know, they're big. And I suppose we really can evolve the detail to bring out the strategy, to help others to build strategy. So I think it's having vision and having a calm perspective when things are very challenging. People want answers, particularly ministers.
And how long does a typical intervention last for you?
Well, it varies an awful lot depending on whether somebody just wants a very quick understanding of their back garden and what sort of biodiversity they've got and how many bat species they've got and how they can interact with that without, you know, and satisfy certain, say, planning conditions of a development. That could be months. Some of the work that we've done does take years. It takes years in helping communities or countries to take a different view, especially when they've had very, you know, we're working with really different cultures, and you can't go into those countries and just expect to understand everything. It takes a little time to settle in and really listen, really absorb. It's not just listening, it's the inner listening, because we're all souls here, aren't we? We're all souls here together. We're all here to help each other. That's how I see it.
And could you give us an example of intervention, doesn't matter if it's big or small, that you're most proud of?
Gosh. Gosh, there's so many, Tom. I don't mean that. I mean, okay. I'll tell you what I'm really most proud of. I've got a terrific team of experienced but quite young people who really want and are passionate to make a change in the world in a meaningful, salient way. And that's what I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of supporting them and providing them. I suppose I built a platform over the last 20 years in this wonderful vehicle called Endgame, and all the people that have helped me to achieve, not for me to achieve that, for this vehicle to exist. Clients, there's so many people that have helped in that journey. It's been an amazing journey, and it's right now I have such a wonderful team of capabilities, and it's great to be able to support them. So one of the things that's stood out there is we've just been shortlisted for Small Consultancy of the Year for an international professional institute in our chosen specialized area. I'm really proud of that. I mean, we're shortlisted to, I don't know how many other consultancies applied for this. It's a lot, and there's only 4 of us that have got through. So we're going to celebrate that in London in June. I'm really chuffed about that. I think it's fantastic.
Many congratulations. Just
Thank
to be
you very much.
shortlisted is good enough in
Yeah,
itself, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And where would people find you? What's the web address?
It's www.engain, that's ENGAIN.com. And
Oh,
you can see
wonderful.
all,
That's simple.
yeah.
Well, it's been a joy to talk to you today, Nikki. Thanks for all the wonderful work that you and your amazing team are doing,
Yeah.
and for sharing your vision and your optimism.
Thank you very much, Tom. I really, really enjoyed it.